Thanks for joining us. We've learned new details tonight about a series of murders that happened decades ago as the man at the center of the case awaits his execution, which is scheduled in about 8 hours.
Joseph Paul Franklin is accused of killing at least 20 people across the U.S. in the late 70s, including an interracial couple in Johnstown. It is a case that local authorities couldn't prove for 18 years. Well, tonight, they're recalling the case. Maria Miller has been looking into our archives and talking with police. She's live in Johnstown tonight with the story. Maria?
Marty, Jen, it was 33 years ago when a young Johnstown couple was shot and killed while walking across this bridge here on Washington Street in Johnstown. It's a case that consumed police for years. They say they always had a suspect in mind, but could never quite prove it until a prison interview 18 years later when that man confessed. Joseph Paul Franklin recently sat down with CNN, recalling the reason for his 3-year murder spree.
They're trying to get a race war started.
A self-proclaimed white supremacist, Franklin is accused of targeting dozens of Jews, blacks, and any whites associated with them. He was a sniper who carried his rifle in a guitar case, gunning down his victims in cities across the country. The most notorious would be the shooting that paralyzed Larry Flynt, publisher and founder of Hustler magazine. Franklin's arrest wouldn't come until 1980, after authorities believe he had already killed at least 20 people, including an interracial couple in Johnstown. This is video from our archives the day of that shooting, June 15, 1980. Johnstown police said Arthur Smothers and Kathleen Mikula were walking along the Washington Street Bridge near the point when someone shot them from this hillside. At the time, police believed Franklin was behind the murder. They said it fit his MO, and they were even able to place him in Johnstown.
This individual was in our area, and this has been learned from a witness.
He was always a person of interest in this case. They just did not have the technology or the capability then as to what we have now.
The shooting happened long before then Johnstown Detective Jeannine Grech came on board, but she was there in the Tennessee prison with Franklin in 1998 when he confessed.
He noticed the hillside, and he thought it would be a good location to do what he describes as his hunting. And he stayed here long enough, and he completed what he wanted to do, and when he did, he left.
Now, straight ahead at 6, we'll have much more on Franklin hours before he's scheduled to be executed, including his eerie interview with investigators from prison and the reason why they believe he confessed. Reporting live in Johnstown, Maria Miller, 6 News.
And what was your mission?
Well, to try to get a race war started.
The words of a killer. Motivated by hate, this man, nothing short of a domestic terrorist who targeted racial minorities and interracial couples, including victims in Johnstown.
He was set to be put to death in a Missouri prison later tonight, but just about 20 minutes ago, a federal judge granted him a stay of execution. This is just the latest twist in a nearly 4-decade-old case. When finally all the killing was over, Joseph Paul Franklin will have murdered nearly 24 people across the United States.
His victims were young and old, mostly blacks and Jews. White people were targets, too, if they had black or Jewish friends.
Now, Franklin's killing spree started in the late 70s, targeting people in St. Louis, Salt Lake City, and Cincinnati, to mention just a few. He shot Hustler magazine founder Larry Flynt twice because his magazine featured an interracial couple. The last year of his rampage, 1980, Franklin, hiding in the woods near the inclined plane in Johnstown, says that he shot and killed 2 people. He was arrested a few months later in Florida, and despite confessing to many, many murders, he's only been charged with a handful.
The punishment he would have received tonight has nothing to do with the Johnstown slayings of Arthur Smothers and Kathleen Mikula. He was black and she was white.
And Maria Miller talked to the detective who took on that case today, one that still haunts her to this day. Maria has that story from near the incline tonight. Maria?
Marty, Jen, it was on this bridge on June 15, 1980, when a young Johnstown couple was gunned down. The lone shooter, as you said, hiding in the woods on the hillside just behind me. Police say they always believed that Joseph Paul Franklin was involved, but they never quite had the evidence to prove it until nearly 18 years later through a jailhouse confession from Franklin himself. It was in 1998 when the Cambria County District Attorney's Office received a call from the Tennessee prison where Joseph Paul Franklin was housed, informing them he wanted to talk. Because he would only speak with women, then Assistant District Attorney Kelly Callihan and Detective Jeannine Grech were chosen to go.
They flew us down, and they were only giving us a time limit of 3 days to get a confession or a statement from him.
And Grech says it took all 3 days before Franklin laid it all out.
He noticed the hillside, and he thought it would be a good location to do what he describes as his hunting.
She says he recalled the day in detail and even illustrated how he got away after the shooting.
When he drew that map, I knew without a shadow of a doubt he definitely was the killer. And upon the completion of the interview, he wanted to shake our hands, which we did, and the eerie, cold, clammy feeling that you had when you shook his hand, it's something that you just never forget.
But Franklin was never charged with a double murder, mainly because he was already on 3 death rows and serving several life sentences.
I think he wanted to confess for notoriety, not because he was remorseful in any way, shape, or form.
Now, Grech also recalled talking with the victims' families after that interview now 15 years ago. She says they understood and they were relieved to finally get some closure. Now, if his execution ever goes through, Grech says justice will be served, but she says she still feels for those victims' families who have to live with what happened every day. Reporting live tonight, Maria Miller, 6 News.